That's James's meal. It's a baked potato on the far side, and then a garlic toast portobello burger.
It looks like a real burger.
Yeah, very lazy way of making a veggie
and
burger.
it will be tastier too.
And arugula, pomegranate, some penne pasta. I've mixed in some black beans and peas to try to stretch it out, and put some veggie meatballs made with chickpea flour, and some spinach. So, and then he's having...
It's healthy and aesthetically pleasing as well.
Strawberries and tiramisu for dessert, and I gave him the little bean thing or whatever. Maybe it's chocolate, I'm not sure, on top. And I'm having
tastes like a coffee bean.
Well, I think it probably is, yeah. Mm. The Suicide Squad got top of the stack. I did not expect that. A street cat named Bob.
I even was laughing at that in the background.
Good Witch and Jay and Silent Bob Reboot got the bottom of the stack. And I was wondering, oh, should I give it the bottom of the stack? I mean, I did laugh.
You were wondering. You were kind of shuffling it up and down and up and down.
Yeah. Well,
she takes this stuff seriously, folks.
Should it be the second at the bottom? Because honestly, I ended up putting it... I'll show you. I'll get to it. So, Suicide Squad. That got top of the stack. I did not expect it to. Especially, I mean, the opening thing, you have these people, they are not heroes. They are like... terrible. They're terrible people, and yet you're watching them and you're like, oh, okay, well, who am I rooting for, whatever. But there's a lot of action, a lot of gore, like serious stuff,
a lot of cussing.
like people
Is that
being
the
ripped
one
in
with the
half
cussing?
and whatever. I imagine there was. Honestly, I don't really remember that part, but anyway, like the first scene, there's a guy in like a little prison yard, right? It's very small, and he's bouncing a ball back and forth, and so he knows where to hit the ball on one wall, so it'll bounce around and he can catch it. And then it shows a little goldfinch landing in the spot, and you know what he does. He takes the ball, and the ball kills the finch. I mean, who would do that, right? So you don't want to think of these guys as being heroes. They're not. They're very much not. They make it very clear at the beginning of the show. Yet there's a lot of action. It's entertaining. It's really well done. The special effects and everything, top notch. And yeah, I think everyone would enjoy it, honestly, as much as you don't want to.
Heroes kind of do these things. Yeah. Putative heroes. Dave Winfield, a big hero. He was in Toronto playing maybe for the Yankees, and a lot of seagulls on the field, and he got a ball and he bonked one on the head and killed it. Right in front of, presumably on TV. And he was much booed in Toronto until he became a Toronto Blue Jay, and then he was a big hero. Dave Winfield, if you're watching.
Nobody who would kill a goldfinch with a ball would ever be a hero. Very bad. But anyway, I don't think they'd be a hero of anyone. Everybody thinks, oh, goldfinch, so beautiful.
I don't know what people are like. There's a lot of skunky guys out there that just like killing.
Street cat named Bob.
I love that. I didn't know that was the title.
Yeah.
And this cat is beautiful.
He is. He's a very handsome cat.
Yeah.
So it's a movie about a guy. I don't know what he was thinking. He's in London and he's thinking, I'm gonna make my living being a busker or whatever. And honestly, who would want to spend any time on the streets of London? Really?
Year round, it would be
even
so
if you
miserable.
were actually making money at it, why would you want to be there? It would be awful. There'd be so much rain. So anyway,
like at what the French call impermeables, raincoats don't work. They're not impermeable, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good place to test out raincoats.
We've worked 8 hours a day in the rain, and
you get wet. You're wet at the end of the day anyway. So anyway, that is if you're working. anyway, so this guy, it made me think, oh, that's interesting that they would even have street people in London, because who would want to be a street person in London, you know?
Well,
surely they would just start walking and go somewhere where it's not London, because anyway, a lot of people do.
Well, you know, a million people made it from Poland into England in 1 year.
There you go. So you would think they would
That's
just
how bad
make it right
Poland
on
is.
out. They'd want to go. But anyway, I mean, people move around. You wouldn't think that people would want to be on the streets in London, even if they were making a living at it. Anyway, so this guy, he's not making a very good living at it because he's a junkie. And I mean, I remember going to work, and I was working for $11.61 an hour in Calgary, which at the time seemed like a lot of money for me, you know, to make, because I mean, I had worked jobs where I worked less than minimum wage, and but I'd just gotten out of college. I'd graduated from college, and I was making $11.61 an hour, and it really wasn't a lot of money then. It's certainly not a lot of money now. And I was a laborer. That's what I was doing. So, taking care of plants.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Do you know what time it is?
No, not a clue.
It'd be about 1 o'clock, but I couldn't tell you more accurately than that. Okay? Good luck.
Huh?
Good luck.
Yeah.
So, anyway,
Do you have an extra cigarette on you?
no, we don't smoke. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, speaking of street people. Anyway,
I think it's all about the smokes, really.
yeah, it always is. So, I learned a lot while working in Calgary as a young adult, and I was mostly walking everywhere I went because public transportation is expensive, and I would try to ride the C train in the free zone as much as possible. But anyway, I walked a lot, and I'd hear all the stories that people would say about, oh, can you spare some money for bus fare? So, and I would say to them, well, I'm walking down there. Why don't you walk with me? You know? No, they don't want that.
Hilarious.
So anyway, can you spare some money for food? So I'd go buy food and give it to them. They didn't want food, you know?
Calling the bluff.
Yeah. I learned a lot of things. So, and one thing that would really get me upset, and I never said anything to any of them about it, but it upset me when I would see them. There were people who would sit by where people get on and off the C train downtown, and they'd have they'd be wrapped up in their blankets or whatever, and then you'd see them later on in the C train, and they'd be talking to each other because they were friends with each other, a lot of them, and they were about my age, and they'd be talking about their $1,000 weekend that they had, you know, where they were doing whatever drugs and whatever, and they were talking about their cat and this and that and their apartments, and I'm thinking, my God, you make enough money that you have an apartment, you have a cat, you're able to have a habit. I'm like, and here I am as a laborer, you know. So anyway, so I'm watching this movie, and and I do see he is kind to the cat and stuff. And so I was thinking, should I even be writing poems and writing songs and stuff like that, you know, because people might see me and how I write songs and whatever and think, oh, I'm one of these people, or think that these people are me, and that's another mistake you don't want to make, or not. And so in the end, he's a big success story, because he goes through the methadone program, he gets off the methadone and everything like that. And oh, what a hero, you know, it's so tough getting off methadone and whatever. And here James, I mean, he had been on opiates, and because of his cancer treatment, because he was terminal at the time, and
it would have been
then we went
the start of palliative
we
care.
went hiking in Jasper. We were hiking Jasper and Banff and stuff afterwards, you know, because the doctors had told James, well, one doctor in particular, a specialist that was very good, he was world class, he said to James, you'll walk without a walker again, but as for hiking, don't expect miracles or whatever, you know, like, and I said, you don't know James. And so after, it took a while for him to get to that point, but we were hiking again, and he was still on the opiates because
it was hydromorphone.
And while we were in Jasper, he couldn't find, he'd packed his medication, he couldn't find it. And so he decided, okay, well, I guess I'm going off it. And they tell you, don't go off it cold turkey, whatever.
I literally couldn't find it. I
couldn't find it, so we went off it, and we just kept hiking. And he didn't have any side effects whatsoever. And we think it was, withdrawal from, and we were told that withdrawal would be really bad and everything, don't go off it, whatever. But honestly, I think it was the hiking.
Yeah. No, don't try this at home.
No.
You know, like, just because it worked for me.
No.
Doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I'm not making any recommendation.
No.
If I'd had my druthers, I would have gone tapered off, but that's just the way it worked out.
So I'm watching this, and then in the end, you know, he's offered, some people come up to him, they offer him a book deal and everything there, and he's a big success. He's a big success story.
I don't know if anyone really gets off methadone, but who knows?
This is based on a true story.
Is it? Okay.
And apparently he's a big success story in the end. And
More power to him.
Whatever. That's great that he got off it. That's great. And he played his music. It didn't sound that bad.
It didn't sound that good, but what the heck? At least he was doing some stuff.
But at the same time, is that his service to society? That he's playing music and whatever? It's playing. You know, when I'm singing my own songs and stuff, I'm not making any money off of it. I'm just, I enjoy it. And honestly, I think too many people make money off of the backs of the working class man, or woman, whatever, I'm using man for either sex, when they're playing. I don't think it's right. I think that everyone should play, everyone should work, and you know, I mean, not everyone can work. When James was terminal, well, he sure couldn't do a whole lot. He was still reading and stuff like that. He was trying to do what he could, but I mean, whatever. But people look at addiction as being a disease. It's not. I mean, this man in the movie, he had hepatitis. He was told he had hepatitis, and then he was talking to his mother-in-law didn't want him around her children and stuff. He wanted to invite himself over for Christmas.
Fun time.
And I mean, she didn't want a junkie around at Christmas for one thing, and she didn't want him around her children. He's like, I'm not contagious, and we just heard about him having hepatitis, and it's like, you know.
It doesn't get much more contagious, short of
so anyway,
plague.
Anyway, good for him. He got off methadone and all that stuff. But better for people who've never been on it. Better for them. Good for you. If you've never been on it, you're more of a hero than somebody who got off it after they got on.
I mean,
honestly.
It's not an illness.
No.
It's an injury.
Yeah.
You
It's
can
a
call it a
self-inflicted
condition.
injury.
Mm-hmm.
So, Good Witch, season 6, somehow that didn't get the bottom of the stack. And I like watching it okay. It's something, it's not the worst thing around. It's certainly not the best. I don't like the way the characters will say to each other, well, you know, you have to tell him, or whatever, or well, you have to tell him. And it's like, okay, are you my mom? Like, why are you telling me what I have to do? Why, you know, but they don't react that way in the show. They're just like, yeah, you know, People don't act that way. They get mad when people tell them how they should live their life, whatever.
They tend to.
They tend to. They tend to say something back. You know, and it will be obvious that they didn't like getting.
People get mad when you tell them how to drive. We saw that yesterday.
Whatever. Yeah. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot. There were some times that I laughed at this, and there were some funny scenes. There was a lot of good acting in it. A lot of people that I really like watching. And this felt long. It wasn't really a long movie. It felt long. It was pretty boring. Even with all the, I don't know, blue humor, whatever. It still felt that way. So James is going to talk about, I imagine, Hunter S. Thompson, but we'll see. Go ahead, James. Take it away.
Have you still got that movie, Hunter S. Thompson?
Yeah, it's still.
So I'll save that for later. Way more horsepower than brain power. That's all I can say. At least they were going relatively slowly.
Yeah.
It's a nice red color. Anyway, I figured they'd been to the restaurant or something. Anyway, this morning I forgot to bring the book I finished this morning, well, refinished, called Hell's Angels, published I believe 1966. So, Hunter S. Thompson, based on a true story, and I think he sticks pretty close to the facts on that one. It's maybe the best journalism he ever did, and we'll talk about that in the future when I just listened to the TV documentary on TV. I'm gonna watch it. Pauline was watching it and listening to it, of course, and she was saying they needed subtitles for Hunter S. Thompson
At the end.
in his last years, and I don't think he's much over 70.
And I mean, in that show, they were talking about, like, we'll talk about it again, I guess, so I don't really have to get into it, but.
Just mention.
Okay, they were saying, oh, it's such a shame that he died, kind of thing, the other people who knew him, you know, because.
It's so much more to offer.
He could, you know, during this Bush era, you know, when they were making the show. He could really have a lot to say about that could help people and whatever. And it was like, I'm listening to that and going, no, he at that point he was a has-been, and he had done so many drugs or whatever that he'd wasted himself. At one point he was a really great writer, and I mean, anybody who read anything that he wrote at one point would say, wow, he's going to go so far. And then, nope. And because he was a drug casualty. That's why. And anybody who doesn't see that is lying to themselves.
And by extension, lying to others. If they start talking about it. So we'll look at... I've been looking at craziness from the 60s, spilling over into the early 70s. Hunter S. Thompson, one side of the fence. G. Gordy Liddy, other side of the fence. So Big G. Gordy, I'll finish this up, please. First time. No. I'd gone through and, well, I finished it up. Well, I've almost finished it up a third time. So it's pages that go. Maybe 50 pages left to go to finish it up. Definitely a second time. I know from the notes I left and the underlining I left, it was stuff from the 80s, from what I could tell. and I've pretty well gone through it back then. It's an important book. It's a Will, the autobiography of G. Gordon Liddy, and you can pick up a lot of things from it. What he was. I'll put in here the license plate of the guy who threatened to run me over because I was wearing a mask. And then he stalked me, and he was trying to make fun of my CBC hat. I was trying to tell him wear it ironically.
Well, we do love. You really like that. What's his name? Tom Power. You like him a lot.
Well, he has too many. He's. I forgot to listen to his interviews.
Well, it'll be on. It'll be on the internet. But yeah, and we both like Because News.
Because News. Tom Power is. I think he's a nice guy. He comes from away. He comes from. The guests are people of color are overrepresented. Already for music, they're overrepresented, and this is not just in terms of population, but in terms of talent. Now that's what people want. They want to listen or watch Rihanna, Beyonce bouncing around, and all this sort of stuff. And that's okay, you know, like that's what people want, that's okay. But I don't like CBC overrepresenting already. Overrepresented. It's the same sort of thing in sports, you know, like people want to watch guys who aren't team players like Michael Jordan, and we're watching worshiping LeBron James and Kobe Bryant and stuff like that. That's okay. I wouldn't necessarily play. You know, like Phil Jackson finally straightened Michael Jordan out a little bit, to the point where Michael Jordan won 6 championships. I don't know if he's going to win any with how great he was. And then Phil Jackson went along and got 5 rings for Kobe. Kobe wasn't going to win any. Phil Jackson's maybe the best coach I've ever seen in any professional sport. But if people want to worship and admire that, you know, like I in London Drugs, I got a chance to finally watch. We don't have TV, so I was waiting for a prescription. I was watching the finals, Denver Nuggets against, I guess it was Miami Heat. And everyone was talking about the Joker, Djokovic, or something like that. And that doesn't sound like a black name, does it? Do you? An African American name, Djokovic. Mm-hmm. There's a big 7-foot guy, and he actually knows how to pass, and he actually does it. I wouldn't bother getting idiots like LeBron James and stuff like that. I just pick up people from Serbia or Croatia. People actually know how to play basketball. You know, like actually play team. Why bother? Even a guy like Steve Nash, someone who actually learned, or Dirk Nowitzki, those guys, I don't think they were that good when they were drafted, but they kept on learning. But if people want to, you know, like cheer for teams of individuals, you remember I used to hate, what was it, Boston Celtics. Hey, funny thing is, I still do. But I can remember they were going for a championship or something like that. I think it was Boston. No, it was San Antonio. I hate San Antonio. Even though I got to admit, those guys play team. I hate their coach, but he gets the guys playing team. Maybe he's retired, I'm not sure. You know, there's not every African American is a ball hog. You know, I'm thinking of Tim Duncan. That guy's he gets my respect. You know, that guy played team. He played good defense, that sort of stuff. We had a guy from Europe who was Ginobili. Was that his name? Was he from Europe? Argentina, I think, actually. Although it sounds as though he had an Italian name. And boy, that guy was a diver, you know, like it was incredible. He should have been in the Olympics, American or Argentinian diving team. Or something like that. But those guys kind of played team. Anyway, I can remember Oklahoma. A young Oklahoma team was going up against them. And they had these three big stars, Kevin Durant and James Harden and what was his name? Westinghouse or something like that. No, that's the refrigerator. Anyway, ball hogs all. And they just got beaten like a drum by San Antonio because they're all ball hogs. What can you do? Like, what do the other four people do when someone like James Harden's hogging the ball? Low percentage shooting. Same thing with that James West, whatever his name is, Westmoreland. And Kevin Durant, what an idiot. You know, he went over one of the big mistakes, Golden State, and that's one of my favorite teams recently, Golden State Warriors, because they tend to play team. And even though the offense tends to run through Stephen Curry, or whatever his name is, Stephen Curry. And yeah, Durant gets on there and not playing team anymore, you know. Well, he was never into that. So he leaves that team, you know, in a huff and all that sort of stuff. And any place he's been at, they haven't done that well. Surprise, surprise. He did get his 2 championship rings. Anyway, G. Gordon Liddy, you know, he's the guy who's going along. And here he says several times, we were fighting a war against the lefties. You know, and there were lefties who were doing war stuff. They were doing terror. They were bombing and, you know, violent, not so much terror, but violent demonstrations. Really bad advertising for the left, and people have to put it into context and say, okay, there were Birchers and KKK and their ilk doing terror on the other side, and basically they're the ones who started, you know, like burning down churches with poor black people inside. Almost over. Couple of minutes. But you know, when you extend that to the Democratic Party, like G. Gordon Liddy did, presumably still does, no, that's unacceptable. You cannot go around and put your politics on a war footing. Generally, countries have trouble running a democracy when they're fighting a war. And so often, you know, there's censorship, so on and so forth. You're not allowed to break the law just because some people are acting in a warlike manner in your society. The Democratic Party wasn't a terrorist organization. They weren't fighting the rest of the country, literally. They weren't on a war footing. So when this guy is committing crimes in the 1972 election to get Richard Nixon reelected, he's a bad guy. He's a really bad guy.